Leadership Journey. I'm Kit Allowitz. I'm here today with our special guest, Brett Savage. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you very much.
Today we're going to talk about the phases. We got a nice introduction to the phases back in October of last year, and the phases has been tantalizing for a number of us, and it's been kind of the talk of the town amongst many of us on the journey. And we got introduced to what they were and a little bit about them, as well as some homework, which we'll talk about in the next video. But I'd like Brett today to talk a little bit more in depth about the phases, and particularly the transition from one phase to the next. So Brett, start us off. Tell us about the phases and what it looks like to move from one to the next.
I'll do it. And the good news is we have a lot of data from E&H now. And you fit this description perfectly of 52 years of asking the question of how people add value, not just how well they perform and do things, but what's the value of that doing when you look at it. And that falls into 4 categories, and we were brilliant enough to call the first one Phase 1. In Phase 1, anyone who's new to any role has got to learn that role and do it quickly. And so, being in Phase 1 means that you're learning your job as quick as you can, because we're not paying you to learn it, we're paying you to do it. And everyone's got that onboarding ramp up, and it's pretty steep. And you might have 90 days, maybe more than that, 120, to really ask all the dumb questions you need to ask. So here's how to be as well as get out of Phase 1. Ask all the stupid questions right away. Figure out how we do things around here, who does them, and how you interact with them. So a lot of conversation between you, your boss, your peers, to onboard and fill that role. Most people do that very simply, straightforwardly. It's a very logical sort of linear transition to learn my job, and those who accomplish that, by definition, we call them now they're in Phase 2, because they're not dependent. I don't have to come ask you how to do my job. I know how to do it. And now I'm more of a team member, player, peer with you. In Phase 2, and you gotta love Phase 2, Phase 2 by definition is somebody who has great experience in a subject matter that's usually by definition narrow. So the bandwidth in Phase 2 is, and this is the beauty of it, is you can know world-class kind of knowledge and skills in Phase 2. Unlike the 90 days that you have in Phase 1, Phase 2, your whole career. Most jobs are Phase 2 if you look at the description of them. It's, what do you do, what do you know, what skills do you have that you can deploy against getting things done and getting the results. And so the beauty about Phase 2 is the bandwidth on that is, as far as length, a whole career, as long as you stay current in the technology or functionality, you stay cutting edge. If you need to be, like if you're in a research and development, you got to stay right there. If you're in sales, you got to be right out there at the edge of what your clients may need, your customers need, so that you can speak with them and sell to that. So Phase 2 is this wonderful body of people who make great contributions in an organization, but stay current, cutting edge, and relevant to the business and relevant to your customers, which may mean that you've got to find a new product or a new way to position that, right? And so that's where you get all your great ideas from those who do the work. Well, there is yet another phase that makes a contribution in a different way. We call it Phase 3. Phase 3 is anyone who is developing others, coaching, communicating, interacting. So it's not about a subject matter expertise. It's about the people, all the other subject matter expertise, and the handoff, the communication, the understanding that goes on between them. Now, while we would say you don't need to be a manager to be in Phase 3, if you are a manager or you want to be someday, then you can begin to sort of interact in these Phase 3 ways. The transition looks a little messy because it's not about adding skills. It's about letting go of being in Phase 2 and being the smartest person in the room and letting go incrementally of that so that you can help everybody else be the smartest people in the room. That's a change of mindset, that's a change of heart. And so I need to abandon a kind of reputation of being the go-to person on that technology or process to now the person that knows how to put all the people and the teams together to make things happen. So Phase 1s and 2s and all the other 3s are better because somebody is the coordinator and the glue that holds us all together. Critical to that then is this next phase, Phase 4. Now, phase fours need phase threes to do all the coordination so that the vision, the change initiatives, we've got to change the whole organization, have people they can hand that off to that then translate what that looks like into the different verticals so that everybody in phase one and two, coordinating with phase threes, are able to the phase four to be able to get the phase four done work, to change the culture, to change the direction, to change the strategy, or at least to keep it going and maintain at the highest level. So here's the thing about phases. Everybody needs everybody else. And if there is a deficit anywhere, then it begins to break down across the lines. So our invitation for all of you is find out what phase you're in, what phase you want to be in, where you can best play and add value to make a contribution, and then let's all begin to work with each other in this mutual best interest way. Does that help?
I like that. It's a great way to reintroduce what we learned back in October around the phases. Question for you. Tell us about some of the misconceptions that tend to occur between 2 and 3. And by that I mean I've fielded all sorts of questions by folks thinking there's something wrong with being in phase 2, or that there's this notion that 3 is better than 2, so there's something wrong with me if I'm not 3, if I'm stuck in 2. So speak to that.
Yeah, 3 is a higher number, so it's better. This is not a linear model at all. It's not a hierarchical model. You don't start down that phase 1s are down here and then 2s are better and 3s are better and 4s are better. But they are different. And because they need each other, one of the misconceptions is that I need to get to phase 3 or maybe phase 4. Most people will never be phase 3 or phase 4. All of us who start a new job are in phase 1 by virtue. Most want to be and need to be phase 2s. It's a great place to be because you're needed. Most jobs, again, descriptions are phase 2. And in this world where technology is king, you're going to need people that are technologists to run that. So any misconception is that I should be phase 3. You never need to be phase 3. It's really hard. I can't imagine a harder role than being phase 3. It's really tough. So it's not linear, it's not hierarchical, it's just that everybody needs each other. That's why that slide are the puzzle pieces all nicely fit together. None are better than the other. They simply need each other in the way they contribute. Does that help?
It does. Thank you. Thank you for that. The last thing I want to mention before we end this video is right before we went to shoot the video, Brett was talking about a fun story that he had in, growing up with his mom, but it also generated a challenge. And I'd like you to consider challenging us with the same challenge.
My mother was a first grade teacher for 42 years. She's now almost 90 and still goes into school to play the piano, do sing along with the kids and all this stuff. Now, that's a phase 2. You go in, you teach the class, you're with your kids, you go home. When my mother retired finally, the school fell apart. The principal was calling her regularly saying, Phyllis, how do we do this? We don't know how to. She, in addition to being a great phase 2 teacher in the classroom, was also a networker, a coach, a shoulder to cry on for the new teachers who weren't doing so well in phase 1. She was there making connections between the principal, the vice principal, the teachers, the custodian. So she was this networker, this glue that held everybody together. And when they lost her, they realized that they lost not just a great phase 2 teacher, which she was, but a phase 3 coordinator, integrator, communicator. And that's where the contribution really hit the road is, yeah, we could probably replace her with a first grade teacher. How do you replace someone who makes all this other stuff better? And so it was one of those critical features of my mother was more phase 3 than we thought.
And then you also mentioned an additional member there, I think, at the school that was in the drama department who used to elicit, and this is maybe where the challenge comes to us.
Here's the challenge to you, and it's beautiful. I have a good friend who is a director of plays. She, a high school, college. I asked her once, how do you make a high school kid better at acting, playing a role? She says, I simply sit down with them and say, I need more from you. And I said, what do they do? She says, they give me more feeling, right? They deliver the same line. The script is the same. Phase 2, acting, here's the script. But when the feeling, right, embody that person, become that person. And it's by this simple question: can you give me more? I need more from you. Can you give me more? And she lets them come up with the idea.
And I think
So there's the question from anybody, but managers particularly is, I need more from you. Can you give me more, Kit? Can you give me more? Not a bad question.
And I think you mentioned that by asking for more, we're not necessarily saying more time. I don't need you
No.
to work from 8 hours to 12 hours.
No.
But I, in fact, need you to consider the subtle differences between performance and contribution.
Yeah, more value.
More value.
Not more lines in a play delivered, better lines delivered that's convincing.
Yeah.
So it touches the audience.
And this has really been the fascination on my part around the phases, is this whole idea of contribution. Can we look at how we spend our time and look for ways to be more contributive in nature in our jobs, and not just check a box and say that we're performing the job? And that's the challenge I'm giving to each one of you as we continue to try on and explore phases in our organization and contribution versus performance. Can you look at your particular role and say,
Right.
maybe I can increase my contribution?
That's the leadership journey in any role, any phase.
Yeah.
That's it. You've just described it.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Brett, and we'll see you next time.